Yeah, how do you look at that and be like, okay, middle of third gear, it's all feel, or just kind of how do you figure that shit out?
Don't think, just go.
Hollow head. You go hollow head.
Hollow head.
You are listening to the Bomb Hole.
Bomb Hole Podcast.
It's going to be very hot. It's going to be very uncomfortable for everybody.
The Bomb Hole.
You gonna slide down them big hills, you know what I mean, on the big, nice burgundy snowboard.
Okay, here we go. Another week, another bomb hole. Welcome to the bomb hole, presented by Solomon Snowboards. Stony Buds, how we doing today, man?
I'm good, dog.
Okay, well, I am happy to introduce, we got TB Tyler Bereman in the booth today. How we doing, Tyler?
Doing great, man. Stoked to be here. Heading back from my month in Kansas doing the Red Bull Imagination project I just did, so stoked to break the drive up a little bit. Stopped in Denver yesterday and couldn't be more stoked to be here because I've been a huge fan of yours forever, and I know you love moto too, and he told me that you were also a huge fan of me, so stoked to be here.
Yeah, we are so happy to have you on the show. And so our audiences, a lot of them are snowboarders. So for the snowboarders who are unfamiliar, let me restart. For the snowboarders that are unfamiliar with TB, he's a former motocross racer. He won Loretta at a young age. Now he's kind of more of a freestyle moto guy. Does biggest whip, does the highest air on the quarter pipe. If you've seen those guys go 500 feet in the air, that's him. He's got, I believe, 8 X Games medals. And, absolute ripper on a motorcycle. So one thing that's going to be great about this convo, TB, is that Stony Buds actually refers to dirt bikes as motorbikes he has in the past. So you're talking to an audience of laymen's.
I'm a fan as of yesterday.
Epic. Thanks.
Definitely hyped.
It was cool. Kind of, we met in Vegas back in the day for Monster Cup or
The Monster Cup, yep.
And I remember you were talking about how you're into snowboarding and kind of what got you into snowboarding, and I know you're super into it. So
Yeah, I think, well, obviously where I grew up in Central California. There's the closest mountains were super far away, and I was so into moto, and that's pretty much, we put all of our money into that. So it's pretty expensive to get a snowboard set up too, and then drive all that way and get a lift ticket and stuff. So I never really did it until 2010. I moved to Southern California, and then at the time I rode for DC Moto Team, and then they hooked me up with a snow setup. So then I started going to Big Bear and picked it up pretty quickly, and yeah, I just loved it ever since. I've missed a lot of winters since then because I've had since 2010. I've had 4 ACL reconstructions, 2 femurs, foot, so I've missed a lot of snowboarding time. But we were just talking about it earlier, and snowboarding is one of those things that it's just like moto for me. Like when I'm riding moto, I'm not thinking about anything else. I'm just, in the groove. And snowboarding's the only other action sport or thing that I've done that is basically keeps me in that same mindset of just doing what I'm doing in the present moment, So I love snowboarding. I haven't been able to do it as much as I want to, just because when it's raining, the dirt's good, and usually when it's raining, it's snowing in the hills. So it's like, you got to pick and choose. But I try to get a few good days that I can every winter, and just try to get back on it this winter. I have the last 2 where I was hurt, so I missed the last 2 years. So stoked to get back out there.
well, let's talk about those injuries, because a lot of snowboarders, you'll hear them say, "Oh, I've got 3 ACLs, or I've done my shoulders," and they think they're like banged up, but that is nothing compared to a moto crosser's body, right?
Yeah, I mean, I could speak for any moto guy, and we all have had a laundry list of injuries. On my right leg, they've completely shattered my foot. I've had 4 ACLs on my right knee, 2 femurs. One of them compounded, came through the skin. And then, you got the whole upper body stuff too. So multiple wrists, like arms, collarbone, shoulders, a lot of concussions.
I feel like with that list, you would never snowboard again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the thing. When I started snowboarding, I had already had 1 ACL surgery. The first one I had was in 2009. So the first time I started snowboarding, I've always pretty much just snowboarded with my braces, just because I guess it's maybe just a comfort thing.
Smart move, I think.
Yeah, and, you're a little restricted for sure, but I've just always snowboarded with knee braces just because I don't have good knees. So I currently don't have an ACL in my right knee too. So I tore it a few years ago, and I just, I've done 4 and gotten 4 surgeries and torn them right again. So I just said, fuck it. I'm just gonna.
You don't need them?
Honestly, like wearing a knee brace, and as long as your knee, like your legs around it are pretty strong, you don't really need them. I know there's like professional guys like Ricky Carmichael that won a bunch of outdoor titles and stuff for outdoor motocross, and he won them with no ACL too. So I think it's just on the back end how much work you put in, and you're not doing a lot of cutting and stuff. You're more just up and down. So there is times where, you'll be, if I'm snowboarding without a brace and I go to like turn, like hit just right, it feels like a noodle a little bit, but it's to the point where I've done it so many times that when it does get loose and want to pop out, it's not like extremely painful. So
yeah, on a moto, your knees are more linear, almost like suspension, where you're on a snowboard, your knees are going all different types of directions.
yeah,
like
exactly.
A little bit more risk.
That's why I was always a knee brace guy.
Well, I wanted to talk about your recovery, because going through all those fucking injuries, I know Haley was on here. She talked about how she saw you in the Red Bull rehab zone.
Yep.
So let's talk about that mentality, dude. Like to come back from those ones, there's some dark times associated with that, right?
Oh man, it's the highest of the highs when you achieve a goal, and then it's the lowest of the lows when you get stuck on the couch like that. It was hard when I was racing because I went through so many ACL surgeries and stuff like that, and I was still just trying to get back to where I was. And the whole time I was on the couch, you're seeing these kids, they're progressing quickly, and they're figuring out how the bikes work better and better, and your bodies and all that stuff. And the biggest part was the mental game, coming back to the racing and trying to line up. And you look down the line and you're like, well, there's 15 factory dudes on the line. Like, I'm putting myself in 16th place already, So just that mental game was really challenging. And then, just having to push through it. But more often than not, every single time that I've gotten hurt, I've been so motivated to get back on the bike. And I've sat there and studied it and just did everything I can to just keep my head in the right place for it, that when I come back, I usually tend to feel like I'm riding better than where I left off. Which is, it's hit and miss. Sometimes it's better than others, but it's an uphill battle for sure, just to try to, get back to where you were, and then that feeling, and then trying to, keep yourself in one piece, because every time you fall, you're in the back of your mind like, oh, I don't have an ACL, I have a bad ankle, I have all this stuff. So it gets tough at times, but that's where you just don't give up, man.
That's kind of cool, like hearing that from your perspective, the not giving up, because I know you're a third generation moto family, right?
Yep.
Like your grandpa, your dad, and then you pursued racing for a long time, and it didn't necessarily you didn't get a factory ride or anything like that.
Yep.
And then so it seems like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you appreciate everything you've got because you've had to work for it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And where I grew up in Central California, there wasn't a lot of tracks and stuff like that. So we'd always have to travel to either Northern California or Southern California. And everything that I've ever gotten, like I've always gotten by with just having one bike and just figuring it out. It's more of just a run what you brung. So I've always constantly had to work for the next step, so it made me appreciate that. And then winning a couple amateur nationals, I was like about to turn pro and thought I was going to get a bunch of support, and I didn't. So then, I just had to figure it out. Just had to figure out how to make it work. And I think having all those injuries was a huge blessing in disguise for me, because every time I would come back from an injury, it would be raining or something, and tracks were too wet to ride. So we just go to the hills where there's a bunch of transition, and we just go shovel up jumps, kind of like how you guys in the backcountry go and, shovel up a snow jump or whatever. It's the same thing. So every time I would come back from these injuries, I would just go film and have so much fun filming and riding with my homies, and then it would come to like race day, and it's like you always end up doing better on those weeks of racing after having fun all week. So then I got to the point, like, you know, I'm making a little bit of money. Like, I'm spending every dime that I have and that I'm making to get to the next race. And that's just taking the fun out of it for me. Completely just spent me, you know? So yeah, I just started filming a lot, and then things just started to fall into place. And then, got a few deals just to kind of, you know, I was still racing for fun, but the deals to just like go out and film and have fun and just do what I do, you know. Fortunately, I was in the time of social media coming up, so it was, you know, giving people what they wanted to see and stuff like that. But yeah, it got to the point where, you know, I realized that I'm having fun and I'm making this money. Like, why go spend it to just not have fun, you know? So it's kind of led me into where I am now. It's like signing with Red Bull a few years ago, and it's just all these video projects that I've always wanted to do that I've never had the platform to do it and stuff like that. So it was a blessing in disguise getting hurt like I did, because it made me appreciate what I do and why I do it. And if I'm not having fun, then I'm not going to do it, because that's the only reason why I ride a dirt bike, is to have fun.
What kind of money does it cost to chase these contests?
So if you're racing,
Or races, I mean.
yeah, if you're going to a race, right, and I would, to relate it to snowboard terms, like a racer towards, like, I'm not necessarily, like you mentioned it in the intro, like a freestyle motocrosser. I don't do tricks, so I'm not technically like a freestyler. I'm like a free rider is what I'd put myself in. It would basically be like a slope contest guy to a backcountry snowboarder. It's basically the difference there. So these guys going and making bare none to make it to the next race. It's $350 an entry. It's $150 for 5 gallons of gas. If you want your family to come, it's $50 a guest pass. Jeez. And then, like, you know, it just compounds from there. You know, you got to pay for your hotels, all that, and then you make $800 to make a main event. You know, a night show, you're basically making your entry back. But then if you make the main event, then you're barely breaking even, you know? Wow. So,
if you win, do you get,
there's a big disconnect there between, like, the top 5 dudes are making good money. The guys that are on teams and their bonus programs and all that, they're making good money, but it drops off significantly from like 5th to 20th.
If you're not first, you're last.
Exactly.
And they,
so
they have
Ricky Booby.
Exactly. And they have like what's called privateers, which are guys kind of paying their own way with small sponsors. And then you have your big, you know, Monster Energy Kawasaki, which brings me to a funny story I've heard about. Mitch Payton is the guy who basically runs the 250 class lights for Monster Energy Kawasaki, the heavyweight in the factory 250 teams. And when what happened when you won Loretta Lynn's?
Yeah, funny story. So I, you know, like he was saying, there's the privateers. I was full privateer guy always, never really had support from a manufacturer. So I won Loretta's, and, you know, I was thinking I'm going to get support. I did good at these other amateur nationals throughout the year. And at the end of the year, I was like trying to figure out like if I could get a ride or whatever. And a friend of mine, which is Twitch's mechanic actually at the time, he had given me Mitch Payton's number. And Mitch is like a tough cookie, you know, like the way to win Mitch over is you bring a 30-pack of Coors Light into his office and you sit down and you shoot him straight, you know? He's that kind of guy. So anyways, Eric, the mechanic at the time, gave me his number and was like, oh, just call him. Just tell him you just wanted Loretta's title and you want to ride a bike. So I'm like sitting there like, no, like nervous kid, you know, I'm like 18 or something. I was like, no way, you know? And then I was like, all right, fuck it. Like picked up the phone, was like dialed his number, called, and it like rang and rang and rang and rang forever. And like, oh, I was about to hang up. And then all of a sudden he just picks up the phone. Hello, this is Mitch. And I was just like, oh, you know, like, Mitch, what's up, man? My name's Tyler Bereman, and I just won a Loretta's title, and I'm about to turn pro, and I heard you guys had a couple guys that got hurt. I was just, if there's an extra bike, like, I'd love to ride one. And he just was like, literally just kind of a quick pause, and then he was like, nah, we're good. And then, dude, like, straight up, just like, nah, we're good. And I was like,
That was it.
all right, thanks. And just hung up.
Oh,
and I was
man.
So, yeah, shortly after that, it was, that was when I was just coming off of an ACL injury, and I got on the bike 2 weeks before the first Supercross race. I'd never ridden Supercross my whole life. Just hopped on 2 weeks before and just threw myself in there. So, pretty stoked on the progress that I did make. By the end of the year, I made like 3 main events, and it was pretty stacked that year. I mean, you could say that every year. It gets, the kids these days are hauling ass, so
They only get faster and faster. Huh?
Yeah, bikes are getting better, kids are getting stronger.
They come out of the womb just
Right
on a PW fit,
Riding
just
one.
into the whoops.
right out of the womb, just all gas, no brakes. But yeah, it's that was a funny story. So I kind of just threw myself in there, and I raced for a few years, but ultimately just riddled with injuries and decided to have.
Did you ever
fun
talk
instead.
to him again and
Oh,
see what his state of mind was and what he was thinking?
For a few years there, like he wouldn't even look at me. Like
Really?
he knew me. He knew my, like I hung out with one of my friends, Darren Durham. He rode for the team at the time, so he knew who I was, but he was probably just like, oh, this little fucking kid, you know. But that year at Seattle Supercross, I was leading, or I was in qualifying time. I was in qualifying position during my heat rate to make the main event, and then I went to the LCQ, and I kept having front brake troubles in my heat. So then they put me to the last chance qualifier. You had to get top 2 to make the main event, and I was leading, and on the last lap, my front brake locked up again in the air off the finish line. So when I landed, I just ate shit, and I like ran over to his pit, and I was like, "Hey, Mitch, like, I need a front brake line, like all this stuff," and he just looks at me like, "Oh, our stuff's not stock." I was like, what do you mean? My shit's not stock either. I have a full oversized kit that I paid for. Just hook me up so I can have another Cowie out there in the main, you know? And he's just like, yeah, sorry. So,
Damn.
but now every time I see him, like, we can shoot the shit and have a beer and laugh about it.
Racing's not like everybody's friends.
No.
Kinda.
Oh, really? It's like he's his team. He didn't even want you back out there, probably.
And I think it's good that you noted that, because that was a huge thing. Like when I was racing, like all my homies that we would go ride like Supercross tracks too wet to ride during the week, we'd go shovel jumps in the hills. And all my homies that we're riding together with all week, like it comes race time and you're down in staging area before you line up, and like no one's looking at each other, no one's talking to each other. You like try to laugh and make a joke or be like, hey, good luck. They're just like, you know, and then it's like,
That's harsh, dude.
it's harsh. So, you know, just the free ride thing, it's like we're all hyped on one another. Like when we go out, like it's like a session in the streets or something, you guys hype each other up, and you know, you're stoked on your homie doing good, and you're like, well, I don't want my homie to outdo me, so like I'm gonna go big this time, you know. So it's just like a friendly rivalry, and we're all super hyped to ride together. So
There's definitely some cool parallels between the moto and snowboarding as I'm listening to you talk, because to me, it was kind of like all snowboard videos, that was the most important thing. All moto videos, that was the bar, the standard. And then social media came along, and I know like the first time I saw you was that one whip you did at the sand dunes. It was one of the first turn-up whips I've ever seen. It was like where you go off nose high and your body's hanging way out in front of the motorcycle, and then you bring it back in, and we'll insert that clip for the video on the screen as we talk about it. But is that the first time you like experienced like going viral or some shit like that?
100%. It was my ex-girlfriend at the time took that video with her phone, and that there was a crazy week of filming. We had like 12 reds out there, and that clip alone like went completely viral. Like at the time I had like 11,000 followers or something, and the video had like 1.4 million views or something. It was crazy. But then it got posted on Facebook and everywhere, and it just like blew up. But that phone clip blew up more than any red clip that you saw from that, you know?
Was that the beginning of the turn-up whip too? I feel like I hadn't seen many before that.
I think like Twitch and like Hanny, like Josh Hansen and stuff, they would do them kind of like without really trying, and then it really elevated itself pretty quickly. I don't know if you've ever heard Todd Potter. He's an old freestyle guy, and did best whip and all that stuff. But he was actually one of the guy that broke it down for me of actually explaining like how to do it. So like when you're leaving the takeoff, you're basically, it would basically be like a shifty, you know, on a snowboard. So you're pulling with your outside shoulder and dropping your inside hip all at the same time. So basically you come off and you put your body in front of the bike and put the bike behind you, but have it like 12 o'clock, you know? So it's kind of the similarities there, I guess, is kind of like a shifty, but yeah, that turn up has really gotten to a point where you can get the thing fully straight up and down and your body in front of the bike and facing backwards, but looking at the landing that way, you know? It's kind of crazy.
From what I hear from you guys, it doesn't feel crazy at all, but it looks crazy, right?
It doesn't feel anything like it looks.
Really?
Like everything, even like the whips that we're doing now, like, you know, there's 3 different kinds of whips. So it's like the classic, like seat bounce, like Supercross whip or whatever, right? And then there's the turn down whip where like when I go right. So you basically turn your bars to the stop, you flip the bike to a 180, you open up, and then you bring it back. And then the third one is the turn up. So that's like the shifty type thing. So there's 3 different ones, but they've all elevated to such a level that like none of them feel as cool as they look.
I saw one, I think it was on the Monster Cup, the seat bounce. It looked like you were going backwards.
Yeah.
Like full 180 and pull it back, and I was blown away.
It's pretty crazy the level it's elevated to. I honestly, like, I don't know how much further we could possibly go with the size of jump that we're on.
What about, you're already at 180. Why don't
Yeah,
you just
what's
go
up?
360?
Well, I've
Is that happening?
Is it not
Are
possible,
people doing that
physics?
yet?
oh, dude, I've had dreams about it. Like,
If you can
You're already
dream
there.
it, if you can dream it, it can probably happen.
so I don't know if you remember when Travis Pastrana tried to do his TP roll is what he called it. So that 720 thing. He tried it at X Games, and when he did, it was basically like a backflip 360. But the way he was coming in, the way the bike was rotating and the power and of the rear wheel spinning, instead of landing upright on his wheels, every time he'd come in, he'd land sideways like that. So he basically did it into a foam pit with a bigger ramp, but he had to add one more flip.
That clip is fucked up.
Yeah, he had to add one more flip to it to make his wheels come in like that. So when I think about it in my head, if I'm going to do a turn down like that and I turn the bars to the stop and I basically turn my shoulder over my head, look back, open up, and then pull it, if I just keep my head dipped and like pull that thing around, I think it'll work, but I'm scared.
No shit. Dude.
Yeah,
You're on a
no shit.
250-pound
I was
motorbike, as Buds
talking
would
with
call it.
someone from the Nitro crew about it, and it was basically like, if you do that, it's going to be a similar thing to how Travis had to add another flip. You would have to, like, if you were to just keep it dipped, I think you would come in landing sideways like that. So it's going to have to be more of like a turn, like open up, and then like turn your head and like yank it back to try to get the wheels in line, you know? But there's only one way to find out. So foam pit,
Harley.
airbag.
Yeah, the hard way.
The thing that's cool in that regard is also you do the quarter pipe,
Yep.
which is basically like a fucking
Dude.
snowboard backside air. you
Yeah,
know?
the footage of that is nuts,
How
man.
the
You look like
fuck-
you're going, I don't, it looks like Ingemar's air,
And
basically.
you guys land at the bottom of the transition.
Yeah.
That shit is kind of risky biscuits.
It-
It looks
it's-
Risky.
It's
risky biscuits.
100% commitment or just don't do it at all. Like, I consider it like Terhe's Arctic Challenge.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like,
Let's
it's
give that a little air horn for that comparison.
yeah.
So you're thinking Turrier on the way in on the 450F.
And I noticed in Imagination, only not many people are into it, right?
No,
It's like a
so-
specialty.
X Games and Nitro World Games are the only 2 contests that have a quarter pipe in them. So I know X Games, like, they've invited people, but a lot of times, like, people show up and it's nerve-wracking.
Too gnarly.
Things 84 degrees and 18 feet tall. The landing is 23 feet tall and like 60 to 65 degrees. So you're coming at that thing and it's like you're looking at a wall, you know? So it's
Yeah.
pretty intimidating. it's a crazy thing because you really don't have to go that fast. You just have to like know that feeling of going upside down, I guess. So like if you're comfortable whipping and you get upside down whipping, like it more or less feels like a whip, but the way you leave the lip, you're basically like you're coming off and you're turning your head and spotting the landing right away, and you basically never take your eyes off of where you want to land. So your bike and your body kind of just follow with it, you know? So.
It's kind of like a method,
Yeah,
but like
that's
way
what
more
it kinda-
badass and upside
kinda
down.
looks like, yeah.
And there's like a rev limiter.
Well, the
and
Nitro Games one was huge, man.
Yeah, so that one is 88 degrees and 34 feet tall. So steeper, way scarier, but it works. Just the angles on it. I think the landing's like 68, maybe 70. But it's steep. Like you get up there and you look down and you're like, nope.
Yeah, but at the time you're in the air and the size of the ramp, you're like 50 feet in the air, basically.
The guy that won went 48 feet.
Oh, really? That was close.
Above the 34.
48 foot air.
Oh, dude.
And that's second gear just going, yeah.
Literally second gear.
Just like barely kind of
That's-
giving it a little.
Could you imagine like having a ramp
looks like a
the-
wall.
It really is.
Yeah.
But if you have that ramp and you have 10 more feet of like drive off of that thing, you could break 100 feet ground up easy in third gear.
And
Like, if
someday
you
it'll
think-
probably happen, right?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
I think once all of us figure out how to hit that thing in third gear, we're going to have so much more airtime. And just because you have more power in third, obviously, like the guy that won and broke that record, he also broke the record on the X Games one, which is 18 feet, and he went 46 feet above an
So
18-foot
big.
one. So big. But we're basically to the point where we're splitting hairs. It's like a pitching contest, basically, but we're second gear, like as fast as the bike can go. You know, you come in rolling at a decent speed because basically, like, if you're coming into it too fast, your suspension's going to push through it, and you can deck. You can deck the top. If
And
you
then
come
you're
in,
jacked,
you're jacked. 'cause
Bounce, I imagine,
bounce-
like,
oh, yeah.
who knows how far, down to the flat.
And then if you go slow and use the power, and then you have a tendency to want to tug, then you'll come out. So it's kind of trying to find that happy medium of how fast do I roll into it, and then how to judge my suspension to have it like rebound at the right time, you know? So
Wild.
Scary. It's
Lot
got to be a
going on.
fan favorite, I imagine, though.
Yeah.
If you look at snowboarding, it started with the 18-foot pipe, and the dudes were doing some pretty cool shit. And then it went to 22, and they went way fucking bigger.
yeah,
But going back to your 360, Axel Hodges does the alley-oop.
alley-oop, yeah, that was gnarly.
It's almost like a 360 in some ways.
Yeah.
Like the way, like the
Yeah, but the
motion
tranny
off
works
of a
for
jump.
it's like a 360, right?
Yeah, it's like it full.
He
out.
did an alley-oop on one of those
He did a
things?
front. I don't know if
Yeah,
it's front side or back side.
Don't you
but-
guys kind of have a front side and back side, though? Because I heard you talking in the video like it's the wrong way for you or whatever.
Well,
I don't
the-
know, just the way your body
The thing
works.
is, like, if I'm gonna air a quarter on a bicycle or like whip on a bicycle, I usually whip the opposite way that I would go on a quarter pipe. But the first couple years of quarter pipe, like the first year at X Games, they had a ramp on each side, and then the landing was like 50 feet wide. But only one person took off on the left ramp. So they used so much floor space and so much dirt for just one guy on that side when everyone else was hitting it on this side. But
Wow.
pretty much every quarter pipe that you go to, it's always set up on the right side with jumping left. So
right to left.
No shit.
yeah,
I wonder
so
why that is.
I think some people say that they would feel more comfortable one way, which in my head, when I thought about it, I would think to go that way. But once I figured it out, I felt more comfortable going right to left,
Really?
which is weird.
Do you,
Yeah, that's
do you hit the
interesting.
brake in the air?
You can.
Because
Just
if right
depends.
to left, then you're actually easier rear brake access because
Yeah.
it's by your right foot peg. But left to right would be hard to hit your brake, I feel like.
I guess if you were to ask like the front side, back side thing, it would be which side your brake would be on. So if you're going left to right, your brake would be on the downside. If you're going right to left, it would be on the top side, which I don't know which one I would put front side or back side on.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
almost makes sense, though, with the brake being on one side.
I would say
Front side's easier. I'd say that would be the left. right
Yeah,
to
that's
left.
probably
Yeah.
what's up.
that's what I was just thinking. Right to left would be front side, and then left to right would be back side, because it would almost be like, say, I don't know. I guess it's hard because the snowboard and the skateboard, you're in line. You're standing in
Yeah.
line.
More like skiing. Do they have it? It's kind of like,
They have
skiers go
natural
straight.
and they
Yeah.
go
That's what it is.
backwards and
Yeah.
whatever they got.
Yeah, we don't go backwards. Maybe in the air, but not on the dirt.
Yeah, you definitely seem like you do in the air.
That would be sick. You guys get reverse on your dirt bikes. You start coming in switch.
That'd be gnarly.
Switch it in
Just
the air to
backwards.
reverse and
Yeah.
you can land backwards.
You mentioned the axle thing though. Like he airs the quarter pipe right to left, but he did his alley-oop left to right.
Yeah, makes sense.
So he did it backwards. But there's been 2 other guys that have landed it. The one guy did it the opposite, right to left, and then the third guy did it right to left too, which both of them air that way normally, but then also did the alley-oop that way.
Wild shit.
Wild.
Well, that brings us to the guest question, which is presented by Solomon Snowboards. If you're looking to get yourself a snowboard, get yourself a Solomon Dance Hall. It's unisex. It's got a tapered directional shape. I see Nils out there killing it on it, and Desiree, a girl that also rides for Solomon. So, yeah, get yourself a Solomon Dance Hall, and let's get into the guest question.
What's up, Mom Hole? It's Chris Beresford here, and I just have a question for Tyler. I'm just curious what he grew up watching for like moto movies, and maybe it was something else. But I grew up. My first movie was by Fox, and it was called Air Raid, and that introduced me into like snowboarding. It was skating. And like I definitely ran with that as a kid, and then Krusty Demons 3, that was huge. And I'm just curious because his style resembles more like back then, and I think it's super cool. So I would just like to know what got him stoked.
Hell yeah, Chris. Thanks. Air Raid was a classic movie. Love that one. He mentioned the Krusties. Like I just turned 29, so I was right in that age group of Krusties just coming out in the late 1997, I think was the first one, maybe 95. But I was young and it was cool. It was like Seth and those guys and like racers in it too, and just seeing tits and ass, and you're just a kid, and you're like, oh, this is so cool, And then it turned into like they did the Terra Firmas, which Fox ran the Terra Firma program, or like their whole video release. I think they had 4 of them, maybe more. But yeah, all the Krusties, Steel Roots, which was Jeremy McGrath's movie. Those were pretty cool. Just really sick riding, good music. And then, yeah, I mean, those would pretty much be it. I think there's moto movies started to get a little more stale, I guess, and more just racing stuff, and the freestyle stuff kind of went another direction and a little too hardcore for the general public, I guess. So yeah, then it turned into just moto movies got really stale, and then obviously the digital age came out and social media and all that, and now you don't really see moto videos. I mean, it's the same for snow. You don't see DVDs and stuff like that. Obviously VHSs, none of that anymore. So pretty cool to see where it's came, and I have a huge like inspiration from all those guys, seeing what they did and had fun, and bringing the racers in too. So it's kind of what I am. I was a racer growing up, and now I'm a free rider. So
Yeah, it's cool to see
full circle.
See McGrath in there and all that shit.
Emig.
Yeah, Emig.
We got like Danny Stevenson and then Buddy Antonez, and all those old guys. Have you ever seen Fresno Smooth? You got to watch it. It's like a Hollywood feature film about motocross.
Really? That sounds sick.
It's actually really funny. It's like you're watching it at first and you're like, what the fuck am I watching, And then Seth's in it, and Seth goes to jail, and Emig's in it, and Emig's talking about it's funny, you just have to see it, but he has a box of Emigos. They call it Emigos, and it's like a cereal box, and he's like, there's a commercial, and he's like, all right, kids, wake up and start every morning with a fat bowl of Emigos. So funny.
At that point, he was winning everything.
Yeah,
too, right?
That was when he was winning everything before he got in trouble and stuff.
So, and the thing that's cool about these videos, for people that are unfamiliar, it's like they're almost like old snowboard videos. Yeah. You got like antics happen. People are lighting shit on fire. They're like, they're just basically being fucking reckless. There's some skits, and there's some amazing People riding dirt
too.
bikes, yeah.
And it's pretty funny. Like, we talk about it all the time. I'm friends with a lot of the guys that were in it, and if they had social media back then, like, all of them would have been in jail. Like, all of them. Like, it was pretty hectic. But they were just, you know, living their lives, like riding dirt bikes and living that lifestyle and partying and having fun, but just recording it all. But luckily, they didn't have social media to see all those posts start flying around when they're doing dumb shit.
I think it's kind of a perfect time for that time of the show, buds.
Name that video part.
Name that video part. Let's get into it. Name That Video part is presented by the Dew Tour. If you get a chance to check it out this winter, it is an incredible event. They support us. You should support them. Shout out to the Dew Tour. Let's get into it. How confident, scale of 1 to 10, we feeling? This is a moto part I picked for you, by the way.
Okay. 6 or 9.
Okay. Great answer.
Good answer.
Great answer. This one is actually kind of, it works for snowboarding and for moto. It's been in both very well-noted video parts. Here we go.
That's quick.
Kids of the Black Hole is the song. Krusty. Is it Krusty 1? No. Wrong. Krusty 3. That was my first in my head. I was like, I think it's Krusty 3.
I mean, you got Krusty.
You know what? That's a win. That's a win in
You
my
got
book.
the song and you got the movie Maker.
You won yourself
Yo.
an Igloo bomb hole cooler filled with bomb hole merch.
Amazing.
We got a mug. We got a hat. We got some stickers.
I like this. The Bud Diesel.
The Bud Diesel. So
like
I'm Grand Diesel. He's Stony Buds. He put us together. We're Bud Diesel.
Bud Diesel.
Bud
I like
Diesel.
that.
And you can fill it with Bud Diesels if you want to.
Perfect.
And just like basically drink those and just be farting the rest of the night.
Yeah.
Those things are thick.
Looks like we got a nice road cooler for the ride home.
There you go.
Sitting right next to the 2 front seats.
So for Name That Video part, we have part 2 for the listeners. If you know, comment on the picture of Tyler's face on Instagram, and you'll get yourself what, buds?
Prize pack.
That's correct. Prize pack. Here we go. Okay. Thank you guys for playing Name That Video part. One thing that I thought was pretty cool for your kind of the way you came up, it seemed like Twitch and a lot of those older freestyler broskies kind of took you under their wing.
Yeah, definitely. When we talked about it earlier, like when I got hurt and I started free riding a bunch, he was one of the guys that we would always go out and build jumps with and stuff. And he was one of the first dudes that was obviously an inspiration of mine forever. And it's a guy I looked up to. And then the first opportunity I got to go ride with him, he was filming for his free ride movie, 420% All Natural. And
Great name.
Great name. And he basically invited me out to Ocotillo Wells. They were filming with also filming the Meta Militia Black Friday video. So there was all the militia guys out there, a bunch of dudes I've looked up to my whole life, like just seeing him in all these old movies and crusty movies and stuff. So yeah, I ended up going out there and I teed up this jump. Like the first couple jumps when I went there, I like almost killed myself. Like I was just like a kid fresh out of the amateur ranks. Like I just wanted to go big. Like that was my opportunity to like prove myself, you know, and I almost killed myself. Like first couple jumps, like came up short on this crazy step up. And yeah, so I ended up like, at first they were like, oh, who is this kid? Like he's going to kill himself, blah, blah, blah. And then he took me out and I ended up finding this other double that no one had hit yet and kind of just teed this thing up and ran into it a bunch of times. And I came back and to like where they were all sitting and they basically were like, I don't know, man, like we're pretty far out here. Like if you come up short, like obviously they were a little skeptical after seeing me almost kill myself on the step up right before. But we were filming and one of the guys, like I ended up just being like, fuck it, I'm just going to go for it. And I drilled it first time, like got it super clean. And then, right afterwards, like one of the filmers, I hit it a couple times. One of the filmers runs over there, the guy filming the movie, and he's like, hey, I just got my camera set up. You want to hit it again? And by this point, they like cracked me a beer, and I'm like enjoying a beer after like just not killing myself on this jump. So then they're like, the filmer's like, oh, like, will you hit it again? Like, I just got my camera set up, and Twitch and all them are like, no, fuck that. You missed it. And I was like thinking in my head, like, well, if I want a shot in this movie, this is my shot. So I just rolled back over there and fixed the lip a little bit and got a couple shots in the movie. But then that was like the first time that me and Twitch really hung out and got to ride together and stuff. And then he was just pumped on how I presented myself and just being a personable kid and laughing and smiling, and then, you know, being able to ride pretty good and hang with those guys. So he just took me under my wing, or his wing, and yeah, dude, he's helped me so much. He's like showed me what to do, what not to do, and he's had a lot of experience when it comes to injuries and competing and, you know, having fun too. So pretty cool to have dudes like that you can be your inspiration as a kid and now call him a friend. You know, it's pretty cool.
Totally. And having him to follow in his footsteps, what a great leader, dude. Like, what a great person to kind of role model yourself after. And it seems like he talks shit all the time, too.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Not to interrupt, but yeah.
No, all the time. He's just constantly talking shit, but that's how he is, you know. And he won't shy away from talking shit to whoever it is, anybody, you know. So, but it's cool now that he's transitioned into, you know, being that athlete spotlight for all these companies. We got outside noises. Go home, people. You're drunk.
Sounds like one of my friends rode their two-stroke over.
That's what it did sound like.
Hell yeah.
Hey!
Or maybe it's a gardener.
Who is it? You. Is that Beresford?
No.
Who is it?
Who's in there?
Dan, we're recording. Come on in. We have Danimals. It's from in town from Minnesota. This guy is actually... Hey, Dan.
This is totally my bad. I don't mean to be interrupted.
You're good, man.
So Danimals, just for the listener viewers, kind of popped in unannounced from Minnesota. Dan actually races A-class in Minnesota, correct?
Dirt Bike Dan.
Dirt Bike Dan.
Off-road, moto, all kinds of stuff.
Hell yeah.
Big fan. It's crazy.
What did you ride up here just now?
Oh, dude, I came up on Mike Boggs' moped. Yes, sir. It's got aftermarket exhaust. So.
That's amazing.
Shit, I was just gonna see if you guys had some air for me. I gotta fill up these tires.
I got an air compressor back here, but we're kind of in the middle of something.
You guys do your thing. I'm gonna cruise. I'll head to Chips. I'll see you guys in a little bit.
All right, Dirt
Cheers,
Bike
man.
Dan.
Good to see you, Dan.
Let's give him an air horn. That is a great little pit stop.
On
That
the
is-
moped.
Yeah, Danimals, great snowboarder. So yeah, back to Twitch.
Okay, yeah. So Twitch, like, he's been that guy, like the main rider for companies, and he's built other companies' brands up just from being himself, you know. So now he's into the point he's doing his Dirt Bike Kids thing, his clothing company, and the DBK thing's really taken off. Like, coronavirus hit, and I swear every person was just spending their checks on DBK clothes because there wasn't much going on, and I was like, he's like, hey, you want to come in and help us pack orders? And dude, we got like 800 orders in a day, and it's like we're there from sun up to sundown and still got another 400 the next day, you know. So it's really taken off, but it's cool that he's giving back to his friends because he knows what it's like to build another person's company and not get much in return from it. So what's really cool is, like, you know, he's giving us money to run the logos and at events and stuff like that, and then basically giving us the opportunity to make like a capsule collection through DBK and make money and give back to, you know, the kids that are helping him kind of pump his brand. So it's cool that he recognizes that, and he's, you know, constantly telling me, like, we could basically start your own merch brand and sell it and distribute it through DBK, and then you can figure out how it works and how it goes, and you know, we can ship everything for you. So it's really cool just being, you know, like I said, he was a
You got plans to do that?
Yes, he's going to help you start your own merch brand.
Yeah, so I that's my plan as of right now. I do have I ride for Fast House as a gear company and clothing company too, but I have a gear capsule coming out with them and some shirts and stuff. But slowly getting into doing the DBK stuff too, because they've dropped DBK merch with us, like signed posters and stuff, and we made like 50 of them, and they sold in 2 minutes. So they were pretty pumped on that, and they want me to, be more hands-on with trying to design some shirts and just kind of see how it goes, and then potentially lead into just doing it on my own. But it's cool that him and his wife are just overly eager to help me.
That's rad.
It's really cool.
She gave you some, Jeremy's wife gave you some advice on your Red Bull deal, right?
Yeah, she absolutely did. So before, excuse me, I was thirsty. So before Red Bull, I rode for Weed Maps, and they had a pretty sick action sports team going on. And at the time, I was going back and forth and didn't really know what to do, and I questioned myself as an athlete, like, am I Red Bull? And to me, like, talking with my family, like, if something's not broke, then don't fix it. So I was back and forth, and there was a time when I was maybe gonna say no to
You're gonna
Red
pick
Bull.
Weed Maps over Red Bull?
Which is a stupid idea. But they were just trying to tell me, like, it was about to go legal, and they were promising me all this stuff.
Are they still around?
Nope.
I was going to say, I didn't think they were
Greatest
still around.
decision I've ever made.
Yeah, smart move.
But at a time, I was like, yeah, I don't know, like, back and forth. And then I went to Twitch and Susie just, like, literally, like, pulled me aside, like, pulled me by my shirt and, like, grabbed my head and was like, Tyler, if you don't take this opportunity, you're a fucking idiot.
From his
like
wife.
Like the
so
scene in,
dope.
what's the scene where they grabs the baby, the Adam Sandler movie? I forget. Anyway, Billy Madison. Anyway,
yeah,
continue, yeah.
So, yeah, she told me, you're an idiot if you don't take this. Like, when you're old and looking back, like, would you rather see Weed Maps helmets on your wall or Red Bull helmets? So, ended up obviously taking the Red Bull deal, which is the best thing that my best decision I've ever made by far. It was just all the things, like, Red Bull is super rad when it comes to supporting their athletes, and it's all the things that they don't put in writing on a contract, like getting hurt and going to the high performance center and helping me get moved from a shitty hospital when I got hurt to a good surgeon to make sure I got handled correctly, and just all these little things, like me being able to think of this idea, like imagination, and go to them with a platform and be like, hey, this is what I want to do, and then have all the right people in Red Bull and within Red Bull to amplify that, to take that idea and make it the best they possibly can with past experiences and stuff like that. So it's all those little things that they don't put in writing. Like, if you can come and, bring them an idea, next thing you know, you got a crazy budget to do a really cool project. It's like, it's those kind of things. So, yeah, by far, best decision I ever made.
You should explain to the laymen that have not watched Imagination yet. By the time this podcast airs, will have been out for a little while. And yeah, explain your concept, because I heard you maybe say like something like BMX meets snowboard slope style meets something. I thought that was a cool little.
Yeah, so I've done a lot of, I don't know if you guys fans familiar with like mountain biking. So like freeride mountain biking, like Red Bull Rampage, all these freeride mountain bikers used to do the FBM World Tour, which freeride mountain bike World Tour, or FMB, I'm sorry. But they would do this tour, and they were going, it was basically like slope style contests, and they would just all burn out. Just, it wasn't by riders, for riders type thing. So they all got together, and they kind of created like a bit of a union. And all the free riders got together, and they started this thing called the Fest Series. And the Fest Series is just all these mountain bikers that were used to compete, and then they just got over it, so they just wanted to ride. So basically there's a host at each round in the Fest Series. Like, Fest Series would have one started in Norway. They had one in Belgium, Santa Cruz, Oregon. They've kind of had them all over, Canada. But it basically, one guy would be a host of the project, build a super sick line, and then bring all the homies there. And they'd rent an Airbnb. All the homies would just hang for a week and film and ride. And at the end of it, all the riders would just vote on each other. Like, pretty given. Like, one guy would get best style, one guy would get best line, best trick, best crash, like king of the whole event, you know? So kind of taking something similar like that formula, as well as like Ferg's like recharged event that he did of having like the pipe and the slope course and then the quarter pipe at the end. Kind of taking something like that, getting everybody together for one purpose, to just get together and film with your homies and ride a really creative course. So pulling inspiration off all those things is kind of what I wanted to do for a long time for moto. So I basically built a course from ground up that's inspiration off all these other action sports that get me stoked. So yeah, like free ride mountain biking, like BMX, like dirt trails, to like slope snowboarding, to yeah, basically trying to just bring it to free ride moto. So that's kind of what I did. I just had a list of all these features that I've always wanted to hit, and I kind of figured out how to do them all into one line. And the best part about this whole contest thing, it was a quote unquote like contest, but it was like for riders by riders. Like, we got like what we said went, you know, so how we wanted it to go. So I built this crazy line. There was a start and a finish. Like, you could ride the whole line.
Track almost.
Basically like a free ride track. And you could ride the line start to finish. But to me, like, when I got there and I started building it and bringing all these athletes in, like, I was there for a couple weeks. So I was able to really break everything down. And I wasn't riding a ton. I did test a few of the jumps. But the way I built it was, you could go start to finish on the line, or you could do whatever you want. There's absolutely no formula for this. Like, it's a blank canvas, and whatever you see goes. So if there's a sick line and you want to do the whole line, that's cool. But if you want to do half of the line and then you see a transfer from the side of that jump to that jump, or that jump to that jump, like, do whatever you want. There's no like right or wrong for this, you know? So I think that was the coolest part of just creating something like that, bringing all your homies in, and then just vibing off of each other and figuring out the line, how to hit them. And then, you know, it started with just figuring out all the jumps. And then once you figure it out, then it's like, okay, how do we take that next step of like looking at it differently? Like, the side of this jump is perfectly cleaned up, and you can go from the side of that jump over 2 lanes to that landing, you know? So
crazy transfers.
Yeah. So,
yeah, the course reminded me a lot of Super Park and snowboarding.
I was thinking the same thing last night.
Yeah, or like a Super Park, or like a Peace Park, or something.
Yeah, just, you know, like something. And the way you came in and kind of the guy you worked with. What I'm curious about is Cheddar Biscuits. What does it cost to build a course like that look crazy?
A lot of renting of equipment. A lot of we were there for 3 weeks. We did 1,400 gallons of diesel a week.
Holy shit!
A week, damn. So to build that whole thing's
it's like a snowcat, though. That's cheap. I mean, probably. I wonder. It's probably pretty similar to building snowboard parks.
That's probably true, huh?
The guy that built this would basically be like, for snow, would be like a Frank Wells.
Yeah.
Or what's the other one?
Gunny.
Yeah. Gunny's not in the cat all the time, but yeah, Gunny's kind of the...
It would be like those two caliber guys that like do all the courses, and they're always super sick. This is like
the best guy you could get.
Dream Tracks is the guy of all the guys to do it. So he just, when he puts his name on it, it's like, it's, you know, he stamps it with his name. Like, it's got to be perfect.
The trannies are going to line up.
Everything.
And visually, they're smooth on the sides. They're not like piles of dirt.
Exactly.
Clean.
That jump over the trees, dude, it was crazy.
Can we talk about sorry to interrupt, but the girl that she was guineaing all the jumps with you. Let's give her an air horn.
Air horn.
She gets an air horn and a gunshot.
She jumped
What's
everything,
her name?
right?
Vicky.
Vicky is an OG, dude.
So Vicky is... She used to race back in the day when they did WMX, so women's motocross nationals and stuff, and then they did women's racing at X Games, Supercross and stuff. She won like 3 in a row, gold medals there, and then she was the first woman to qualify for a Supercross night show. So she went and raced Supercross, and like everyone was always like, "Oh, you're a chick." Like, no, you're not gonna ever make it, and that's her MO, is like proving everyone wrong. So. This year she does shows for Nitro and does like tours all over the world. So they do freestyle shows and stuff. This year, obviously COVID, it got like all the shows got canceled. So we were free riding a ton. Like she was filming for her X Games Real Moto part, and I took her out to a couple zones, and she was crushing, dude. Like, not to say like, oh, like she's crushing for a girl, because you don't want to be like boy and girl or whatever and separate that, but like she was absolutely putting it to the boys, and like proving her point and proving her spot. So she did really good on her X Games part, and then so we were kind of going back and forth on, we couldn't really invite a ton of people just because it was the first time, kind of had to prove it. It was private property, only had a certain amount of places to sleep, and you know how it goes. But so we were going back and forth, and the last second, like maybe 2 weeks before, we were like, yeah, like Vicki's in, like this course is going to be gnarly. She's going to be a bit out of her comfort zone, but I have all the faith in her. Like, she's going to crush it. And dude, she came out, and she doesn't have an ACL, just had a couple huge crashes like leading up to it. And she was pretty sore. And, she basically just showed up, and my physical therapist was there. So he helped her. And then she went out. She was struggling a little bit with like the tighter stuff on the one section where you kind of warm up on. But dude, we took her down to the big stuff, and like I hit both the jumps once just to kind of like, because not only am I like hosting this thing, like I built it, and I've sat at the bottoms of all these for 2 weeks, and I visually know exactly what speed I need to hit it, like just by looking at it. So I was also being like the guinea pig to tow everybody in, like, look, this is how you hit it, like this is the speeds and all that. And I showed her the one, and then the moon booter after, and then the one over the trees. There's like 3 in a row. And she watched me hit it once, dude, and she just turned around, and she just hugged
That's all it took, huh?
Yeah, and then next thing you know, she's tricking them all and like doing whips off the first one, doing like Indian airs off the second one, and seat grabs, and like tech jumps to be doing tricks on. And like everyone was like old pro supercross guys were there and stuff, and they'd look over, like Cole Seeley look over and be like, did she just seat grab that? And I was like, yep. And he's just like, oh, like, so it was really cool to see.
What a badass.
Unfortunately, she had a little mishap, but she didn't even crash. She just landed hard, and she has a bad foot, kind of like all of us there. I think every single person there was walking in limping and left limping worse. So just from the big jumps, the landing. So
what I'm fascinated by is when you look at, what's the one over the trees, 100 plus?
98.
98, okay. 98-foot gap over trees. There's no, how do you
blind?
Yeah, how do you look at that and be like, okay, middle of third gear, it's all feel, or just kind of how do you figure that shit out?
Don't think, just go.
Hollow head. You go hollow head.
Hollow head.
So the first time I hit the thing, like the berm before it, leading into it, like you hit this big old berm, and there's this little double out of the berm, like into the pocket of the lip, and I was landing and like ripping the berm. Like the berm's like 15 feet tall, the biggest berm I've ever seen, ever ridden. You just have so much speed going through it. And this jump over the trees, obviously it's blind, but the landing goes down and kind of into like a little pit, and then there's like a rolling single after it, like full mountain bike style. But if you go long on that thing, like it's bad.
Uphill.
You're going into uphill, plus you're falling from really high. So the more I was like riding through this turn, I was like coming out, and I was like, oh, that's too fast. Like I just psyched myself out to not go long. And then I just fully brain farted when I went for it, and thinking I was going to be long, I was not long.
You kind of cased it, right? The first
cased
time?
the shit out of it. But basically, like the guy that built it was like, hey, we can notch out a section of these trees and cut them out so you can kind of get a better visual on where the landing's at. But I told him that I thought the trees being there was a really good gauge to know if you're 3 feet above those trees, you've got the landing all day. So it's like, it's almost a gauge, because if it's one of those ones where it's kind of deceiving. It's a little faster than you think, but not too fast, So, yeah, that one was gnarly. Guinea pigging that was scary.
You, what we call knuckled it. And do you run, your suspension had to save your life, basically, right?
Oh, yeah.
Do you run the wider diameter size suspension like the racers do?
Yeah, so they have, I think stock's 48. They have a 49 cone valve, and then there's a 52 that only like the factory teams run. You can't really get your hands on them. But I have the 49 cone valves. And my bike, like, I can unload it and let you feel it. That thing is like a BMX bike. Oh, my suspension is so stiff.
Yeah,
you can't even push it down. But for quarter pipe and stuff like that, the tranny's so quick that I'm still bottoming out. Like a suspension that it feels like a rock, you know? It's crazy, but
there's something interesting thinking about that, because I've been on the track and I've hit jumps out of the corner that you're like, okay, I'm on the berm and the jump's right in front of you. You just hit it. You just go hollow head, like you're saying.
Yeah.
But sometimes when you're snowboarding and you're staring down a giant cheese wedge and you're, 200 yards above it, being like, okay, I got to go straight from here. It's like a little bit like more nerve wracking than just coming out of the corner and hitting something. There's probably some logic there, right?
Definitely. I mean, the more, I don't know if I'm just wired that way, but the longer I sit and look at something, the more I have time to psych myself out. Mm-hmm. So it's like, if just being at the bottoms with some of them, maybe it's just like I've done it so long that I can basically look at a jump and I can know the exact speed to hit it, give or take. Every once in a while I'll be a little short or a little long, but I'm usually in the ballpark. And I think it's just a comfort level of knowing, like, you probably see a park jump and like know the speed right away, but like me, I'd just beeline and land at the bottom, but it'd be a similar thing. Like, you can see something and you kind of judge it off of just knowing, I guess, your skills level or whatever. But it's tough, like those times when it's like, okay, like I've rolled up to it a few times and you're like, okay, this is the time. Like, you're turning around, you're telling yourself like, all right, I'm going this time. I'm going, and then
there's no turning back.
There's no turning back, especially like with some of those ones where you come out of a turn and it's like a setup jump and it's a tight belly. Like, if you land kind of committing, like, you better just go. Mm-hmm. Like, you can't pull out
quick, especially in the imagination course where you don't even have a second to just.
Yeah, yep. And some of them are like BMX, like the back sides of the walls are cut like a vertical 90, mm-hmm. So you can't roll them. You got to just go. So it's kind of gnarly. But then, there's other ones, like the technical ones, the short, steep, like turning, like shark fin style stuff. Those are harder to judge because you got to be like pinpoint accuracy. But like, say the one that was over the hill on the course was 140 feet, but like long straightaway coming into it, long ski jump lip, and it wasn't really that fast, but.
Except for your broski that exploded on that one?
Yeah, like the landing's 100 feet long. Like, I told him there's probably no way that you would go all the way to the bottom. The landing from 140 where it rolls on the knuckle to the bottom is another 100 feet. I was like, I don't see you going that far. And he went that far.
Maybe not the best advice. Maybe not the best advice he's ever received.
No. What's cool about that edit too is when everyone shows up, the banter, you can tell they're all like a little out of their element.
Oh, for sure.
And like the way they're talking, it reminded me a lot at snowboard sessions.
Yeah.
How these guys act when they're a little bit scared.
Definitely.
Just
you can see it on
the comments,
face.
and what they're saying.
And it's like, there was a point where I started to test a couple of the jumps and I was like, man, there's like, it's pretty hectic. There's like not much room for air. Like, there was a time before everyone got there, like, man,
what if no one hits them?
Is my imagination, like, did I bite off more than I could chew? Is this like a little too gnarly? But then, like, soon as, because a couple of the guys were like, hadn't had a huge background in free riding, like more racer guys that are now transitioning into it. So at first it was like, man, I don't know, is this too gnarly? And then like first impressions of the course and everyone out there, like, it went a lot better than I thought it was going to. Everyone was for sure nervous and like, holy shit, you're out of your mind. But like, I'm just going to follow you pretty much. It was just, I'm just going to drop the tow rope.
It's basically up to you to show them what's up. Yeah, and if you don't jump it, they're probably not going to jump it.
And it was cool. Like, just that whole thing was really cool for me just because it was, I wore a lot of hats. I was the host. I was basically like, quote unquote, like the producer, I guess, because I brought the idea to Red Bull. And then, of course, they had a whole team of people to help make this happen. I can't just claim that on my own. But I was doing that. I was being the host. I was basically helping build the whole thing. I was wearing a lot of hats and getting pulled in a million different directions. But then it went to the time of wearing all those hats, getting pulled in every direction till like night before contest. Like, okay, like switch over to athlete mode. And like now don't pull me in any directions. I'm not going to be mic'd up. I'm not going to be on a radio. Like, let me transition into being an athlete, you know? So that was tough, but it was really gratifying to me to like be able to wear all those hats and the way it came out and the way it was perceived and everyone hitting me up. It's been really cool. So
dude, it takes a lot of balls, respect on that to kind of say, hey, I'm going to do this big project. I got all this money behind me. Like, dude, if you get hurt the first day, like it's all for nothing, you know? And to have like people that do their own projects, it's easy to just kind of hitch your wagon to somebody else's project, but to come up with your own thing, execute it nicely. It's really, it's got to be kind of give you some confidence for the next ones and kind of keep the mind going, right?
Definitely left on a good note, which was good. But like, you know, leading up to it when I'm testing these jumps and stuff and basically, you know, I didn't want it to be like, okay, this is like Tyler's contest. This is like his course. Like he's had time to ride it, like, and people bitching about that. But I can speak confidently for every one of those riders. Every single person was so beyond stoked that I had already guinea pigged all those jumps.
Yeah, they know they're possible.
They know that it's going to work. So that was a cool thing. It's not like I was out there riding every day, riding the whole line. Like I didn't do a full pull until the night before the contest. Like when everyone got there, I still had 3 jumps that I didn't hit. But, you know, I think for the most part, they were stoked on me guinea pigging everything. So I didn't want it to be like, oh, this is his contest and blah, 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 blah. But it was just cool to see everyone's reaction on it and like me guinea pigging it first and then just like coming up and just like everyone started clicking things off super quickly and we did battle the wind pretty good. So that was pretty gnarly. So we got limited windows to ride actually. Like it was maybe an hour in the morning and an hour in the afternoon and 3 days of what we had set for film days, just jam sesh days with your boys, you know, training stuff. And like by that time, if we would have had all those days, we would have been fired up. But, yeah, we just got put into a window with weather and stuff and kind of had to make it happen. But there was the night session before the day of the comp, like that to me, like that was free riding right there. Like all of us feeding off each other, training each other. There's 5 dudes and 1 jump in the air at the same time, you know, like those sessions is what really set it off. So that fired everyone up for the next day and stuff. But I think if we're going to do it again, which we plan on it, hopefully obviously hope on better weather, but just do that same thing. Just ride and film and just get those amp levels super high. By the time contest comes, it's like, all right, like game on, you know? So, and there's a million ways you can pull it, like change it up if quote unquote contest or make it more like jam sesh style. I mean, there's a lot of ways you can do it. So it's cool to get the first one out of the way. And then
that seems like the future from my perspective. Cause to me, when you watch, you know, freestyle, I'm using air quotes for the listeners, motocross, or whatever you call it, where people are hitting all the ramps and they're doing the flips and they're pulling their bars up and they're doing like the flip and they do the heel clicker and then they're like, and they're switching over and they're doing the 360, like where they do all their like stunts. Like that, to me, I'd rather watch best whip or I'd rather watch best, you know, the quarter pipe. And it's kind of cool. There's these timeless, like a whip is timeless. It's like a method, like you said. And it's cool. Like you don't do backflips and fuck it. Who cares? Like, right. It's like, I'd rather watch somebody do a whip than a backflip.
And that's the
kind
thing,
of cool.
Like for X Games now, like freestyle used to be huge for X Games, but now it's to the point, like the average Joe that's sitting on the couch, like for me, when I watch a slope snowboard contest and he does a cab quad cork 17 whatever, you know, I'm just like, what the hell did he just do? Like
we don't know the numbers either.
It's amazing.
Yeah, we
like,
can't even tell.
It looks sick, but like
it all looks the same.
It all looks the same to me, you know. So like I mentioned it earlier, like I'd rather watch like a method is like a whip on a dirt bike, or like a switch method would be like your opposite whip, like your opposite way whip. And you can take the gnarliest freestyle riders that do double backflips and tricks, but they can't throw a whip. you know, and it's the most simple thing, but like one of the most important things to me, you know. It's like being on a snowboard, like there's probably guys that can do quad corks that can't do a switch method properly or make it look good or whatever, you know. Not to say that they can't, but you know what I mean.
There's some parallels too, because you have moto guys learning all these flips into foam pits. The new generation of snowboard kids, it's like you go back 3, back 7, back 10 into a foam pit, and they ride foam pits or airbags all summer.
Yeah.
And then, you know, where the old school, it's you learned everything to dirt or you learned everything to snow. So you can't really fundamentally skip over those things and just go to like backflip fucking double heel clicker or whatever the hell the name of it is.
Like back in the day, like for Twitch, for instance, like he's never jumped into a foam pit. He's afraid of them. Like everything he's done, he's learned it to dirt. He's jumped in a foam pit maybe twice. But yeah, it's kind of funny to see. It's like FMX now. It's like you can take these guys. Like that's kind of where I went with this project is I invited more freeride guys that have like technical ability on a bike. Obviously, freestyle guys have the technical ability to do these tricks, but the like more simple technical ability of like a whip or maneuvering your bike in sections that you're not supposed to. So I don't know if you remember like Red Bull X Fighters back in the day, it was a huge freestyle contest and they'd take that everywhere, but it just got to the point where this guy had to have this angle ramp for this trick at this feet. So every guy there had to have a special ramp for something, or it just got too complicated, and then people just aren't really understanding what's going on. So now like fast forward like to this contest, if I was to bring like a freestyle guys there, like they're not going to be throwing flip tricks on all these jumps because they're so tech. Like it's not a trick style course, you know. And then like you could start to invite those guys and stuff, and which I really do want to, because I want to showcase like what could be done on technical stuff too. But I don't want it to turn into an X Fighters where it's like this guy has to have this angle on this jump because he's trying to do this. Like we're all riding the same thing, doing the same thing, you know. So it's cool. It'll be interesting to see kind of where it goes. But yeah, just the free ride thing is more simple. I think like the average Joe can see a whip and be like, oh, I'm going to go ride tomorrow. I'm going to go to the track. I'm going to try to do a whip. You know, like they can't be like, I'm going to I see this double backflip. I'm going to go to the track tomorrow and try a double backflip. Like it just doesn't work like that, you know? So I think it's more relatable. Like Step Up was jumping the bar at X Games. That's the highest viewed discipline out of everything for a long time. But now it's transitioned into like best whip is, and quarter pipe is like really high up there because it's simple. Like whoever goes the highest wins. Like whip is kind of a little harder because there's 3 different kinds of whips and it's a little bit tougher, but like quarter pipe, it's like whoever goes the highest wins. So it's like simple.
Easy to figure out.
Not up for debate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just all height.
Who can piss the highest?
Who can
on their back.
The dick measuring contest.
Yeah, basically, huh?
But the thing that I learned about today, we were talking about whips, and I was saying I go off the jump, I try to do whips, and I basically usually just move my head or my butt, but the bike stays completely straight.
Then you felt like you did a whip.
And I feel like I do a whip, and then somebody shows me the video, I'm like, oh my God, that was actually horrendous. And
butt whip.
It's called a butt whip.
Yeah, that's great.
Big butt whipper.
Hey, you got to start somewhere, man. That's how I did. Like, if I would show you videos of me when I was a kid riding 80s and trying to learn whips, I was doing the same thing. Like, bike staying straight, but I'm over here. But, you know, and it just
feels like you're going backwards.
Exactly. Like, I just watched Todd Potter win the whip. I'm like, I'm going to do one, you know? It's like, oh, yeah, I'm in there next year. Give me an invite, X Games.
When you were talking about Red Bull, I think the coolest thing about them is those projects that they do. So it's pretty sick that you switch from weed maps and all that.
Yeah.
I was watching the LA edit, and that was insane.
Dude, that was like a dream.
That was like the coolest thing to watch.
Honestly, like doing that whole site check and like just scouting spots that we'd want to ride. A lot of the spots that we wanted to ride, we couldn't just because of too logistically shutting down sidewalks and streets, and it got pretty gnarly. But just some of the things, like the first day, like we had a a grid downtown that they would like, we would have a police escort of a guy like on a motorcycle cop in front of us and behind us. And then they would basically just escort us around this grid of like a square block of like 4 blocks, 4 blocks, 4 blocks, 4 blocks. And right away we're like, we don't really know like if they know what we're about to do, or like if we can wheelie, if we can burn out. Like we had no idea. And then we're like, well, there's only one way to find out. We just kind of just started doing wheelies and nose wheelies past them, and the cops were pumped, dude. And then we make this right, like right in front of Staples Center. And we make this right, and I'm like coming out, and I'm like, I'm just gonna light the tire up and see like what they think, you know. And I just like stood up, just like lane to lane, like just roasting the rear tire, and the cops are like pumped on it, you know. And I'm like, this is crazy, like what the hell is going on right now? And it just got crazier and crazier every day, like just being able to ride through the cities, people like taking videos of us, and we have police escorts. Like it's just, it was the wildest dream came true, you know. It's like some of these times like I get going and going and going on these projects, and one I've kind of backed up another, you know, 3 projects now this year. So starting with that one, like you tend to almost forget about it because things just happen so quick. But we just had this conversation the other day, like, dude, how crazy was that? That was like a dream. Like there's
3 in a year is nuts.
Nuts, huh?
Yeah, that's heavy.
Dude,
yeah.
I think it's really cool to hear coming from your humble beginnings, and then right, you fucking had a rough road to get to where you're at. You had to like work construction or some shit, right? When you're younger,
hardwood floors.
Yeah, did hardwood floors.
I installed hardwood floors in Chuck Liddell's house when I was in high school.
Let's give Chuck Liddell a little air horn. Our friend was on Dancing with the
Louis
Stars.
Vito.
Louis Vito. He said he's the man.
Yeah,
He just calls
cool.
him Chuck.
He calls him Chuck. He goes first name basis. But yeah, then like, dude, you fucking work your ass off, and then you're finally given these opportunities, and you're killing it, and it's cool. Even on your way back, you don't have to stop in Salt Lake and sit in the garage with a couple of fucking borders of Wayne's World style, but you're like,
Hey.
I'll make a pit stop.
We'll do this one for the
So
Wayne's
so
World.
for the for the listeners, he's got a Wayne's World background.
Zang.
We like to kind of have the Wayne's World vibe going here. But we appreciate you making the pit stop. And
Dude, I'm stoked that I could, man. I love this place, and getting some fresh air along the road's nice, and breaking up the drive a little bit. So stoked I can make it in. I know you had actually hit me up during Salt Lake Supercrosses and asked if I was going to be out there, but I don't do Supercross anymore. So, but I was like, that was always on my list of things to do. It'd be sweet if I was coming through here, if like Nitro was back here for World Games. Obviously that got canceled with COVID, but I was going to try to make it happen. So if we were coming back from Kansas, figured why not pit stop.
Well, appreciate
But
it.
you guys are just driving back from Kansas now?
Yeah.
So they put that out that fast?
Dude, that fast. So I've been there. I left California September 17th, and I drove to St. George, and I went to a pit bike race in St. George, and went to some of the old Rampage zones and went and rode around on our 110s and stuff, and then went straight from there to Kansas. And then I was in Kansas from the 21st until Sunday. We left at 4 p.m. So, yeah, I've been gone that long. But each, like you said, they put the content out so quickly. They had a production trailer there, and they had 3 editors editing the whole time. On the fly. So these guys there was Signature Series Day, there was like 13 cameras or something. So they were coming in and just dropping the footage, going back out, dropping the footage, going back out. And these dudes are just all day, all night. So mad respect to those guys. Like they're
Give an air horn.
Definitely they were the MVPs. They were tirelessly like an
editing
hour,
24/7,
hours sleep a night, just
filming, editing.
Yeah. So, so we basically, we got there and the guys came in, and then the next day, like they had the first impressions video up and like the build part of the video, and then slowly led into three episodes of leading into contest day. So I know a lot of people were wondering, like, they saw more riding in the first 2 videos of practice, and they didn't show a ton of the contest in the 3rd episode. So just so everyone knows, they're airing a Red Bull Signature Series full contest runs hour-long TV show on Fox coming out in mid-November. So you'll be able to see the whole contest day, and then basically those 3 episodes were like a BTS, like, behind the scenes of how it was made and what we're doing and those sessions that we have during practice and stuff. And then, leading into the Signature Series show. So pretty stoked on all the content to come.
What's next for TB these days?
Oh, man. So when I was there, like, we stayed for a few days to decompress. I got my first deer hunting with Adam, the guy. He's a amazing dude, Major League Baseball player.
He was in the video. I saw him.
Yeah, Adam's legend. He's kind of tied in with all kinds of stuff. He does a foundation for human trafficking program that he like does sting operations and stuff for. So he's really, really good dude. Town sheriff, like, dude is badass. But got a deer, and then the next day took me out, and I got a 1,000-yard shot with a 308 sniper and then a 338 at 1,000 yards. So
holy shit.
I'm pretty pumped on that. So I'm home for a week and a half. Next Thursday, I fly to Kentucky for a pit bike race with the Nitro crew and Pastrana and a bunch of these guys and Ryan Sipes. And then I fly home. I'm home for another week. And then I think I'm going back to Kansas to do a hunting trip with a bunch of military guys and Adam and stuff. So that should be cool. And then as soon as I'm done with that, fly straight back and go to a day in the dirt for the Red Bull Day in the Dirt there in Glen Helen. So, yeah, pretty stacked up.
Sounds like a fun schedule.
Yeah, it's super fun. Kind of break it up with shooting some guns and being American.
And then you going to come up with another project to pitch and keep it going, huh?
I definitely, it's cool that this one went so well. I think we'll hopefully be able to keep this one going, but I do have some stuff wrapped up in my head that I really want to make happen. So
nice.
Some stuff that I really want to involve snowboarding too, which is really cool. So
that would be
I
sick.
won't say too much, but yeah.
All right. Well, we got big things coming from TB. I think we did it, man. You got anyone else you want to thank before we wrap out?
Man, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, and hopefully I want to come out for winter and I want to get a day snowboarding with you guys.
We're going to teach you backflips. Also,
Perfect.
That's the one thing we got to do, because maybe it's hard to learn at the resort, but if we take you into the side country or up to the cabin, we'll build you just a perfect little jump.
Yep.
And it'll be hard to not do one, actually.
For sure.
And the powder too.
Yeah. You can land on your head. You don't have to worry about breaking both your femurs 17 more times.
I just want to say thanks to you guys and thanks for everyone listening. Hope you enjoyed and hope I made you all want to go buy a dirt bike because it's damn fun.
Couldn't agree more. We appreciate you guys listening, and we will see you next week.
Peace.